Hey folks, welcome to another Passion for Sound audio review. I recently reviewed the Shozi Form 1.4s, and during that review I included a conversation about the Moondrop Starfields, and they're the IEM that's up for review today. So if you've already watched the 1.4, you've got a sense of what I'm going to say about the Starfields already, but I'm going to go into it in a bit more detail for this review, so stay tuned and see what I've got to say about the Starfields. Before I get into that though, I just want to remind you that I'm going to be giving away this pair of Moondrop Starfields, and they've been provided thanks to Shenzhen Audio, so thank you Shenzhen for making this possible and making the giveaway possible as well. So if you're interested in winning these, particularly after you hear what I've had to say about them, make sure you're a subscriber and drop a comment down below. I'll be drawing the giveaway after the upcoming review of the Topping E30 DAC, which will also be given away. So lots of giveaways coming. If you don't want to miss out on those, if you want a chance to win free gear, make sure you're a subscriber and make sure you comment on the videos. Also, speaking of winning giveaways, if you would like extra chances, jump over to the Patreon page and see how the patrons get extra chances to win every single giveaway. It's a great way to pick yourself up some free gear. So onto the Moondrop Starfields now. These have been provided, as I mentioned before, by Shenzhen Audio, and I'll put a link down below so that if you start to feel like these sound like your cup of tea, you can jump through that link and say thanks to Shenzhen for providing this for review by buying directly from them. I make no money off those sales. It's just a nice way to say thank you to the retailers who make reviews like this possible. The Starfields retail for $110 US, and what you're getting for your $110 is a single dynamic driver in-ear monitor that uses carbon nanotube technology. Now, carbon nanotubes are not a new technology. It's been around for quite some time now, but it's a great technology in terms of being able to produce a very rigid driver diaphragm with a very thin, lightweight layer. And what that means for us sound-wise is that if the diaphragm is lightweight and rigid, it's less likely to break up during the excursion movement of it pulsing forwards and backwards with the sound wave, and that means you're going to get cleaner, clearer sound with less distortion. So in theory, the Starfield should be a very clean and detailed sounding monitor, but then that does also depend on how they've been tuned. The blurb on the Shenzhen Audio website from Moondrop suggests that these are a more musically tuned earphone than something like the Moondrop KXXS, which is specifically designed to be very detailed and very analytical according to the marketing information. I haven't heard the KXXS, but I was interested to see how the Starfields were described after I had a bit of a chance to listen to see how well it matched up to the description that came through from the manufacturer. In my time listening to these, I don't think I'd go quite so far as suggesting they're a laid-back musical earphone, and that's certainly the impression that I got from reading the marketing information, but I'll talk more about that in a moment. Before we get into the sound, let's talk a bit about what you get for your $110, other than the earphone itself, obviously. Within the packaging, you get the earphones and the cable, which I'll talk about in a second. You get a teeny tiny carry case, and honestly, whilst it's nice that it's quite a firm case, it's a little bit too small. I feel like I'm having to wrap the cable up really, really tightly to get it into this. So it's a minor drawback. I think I said in the Shozi review recently, I don't buy an earphone based on its case. It's very easy to buy a cheap, simple case to replace any of these if you don't like them. So I wouldn't make that a deciding factor, but I did feel like this case was just a little bit too small by the time you're getting the body of two decently sized universal IEMs in there plus the cable. What's also in the box is a pair of tweezers and a set of 4 pairs of the filter that goes on the front of the IEM. Now that's not about tuning, that's just about the fact that Moondrop have identified that a lot of their warranty issues come from, I'm guessing it's debris or earwax or whatever, actually getting caught in the filter and people thinking there's a problem with their in-ear monitors. So what they've done, I think this is a great idea, is they've provided a very simple set of tools to fix the problem yourself rather than having to go through the hassle of sending them back and having Moondrop fix it and return it to you. So it's not about tuning, it's not something you should necessarily play around with. What Moondrop actually say is if you get channel imbalance, if say the left side gets louder than the right side, it tells you that you need to replace the filter on the right hand side. So it's just a nice little touch, they've added that in there. I've certainly never felt the need to do that on any earphone I've ever owned, but we're all different. Some of us have waxier ears than others, depending on how often you use it, the circumstances you're in, if you're in a hot, humid environment. All of these things can stack up and make it more of an issue in some locations and for some people. Beyond that, you get the earphones and the cable, as I've already mentioned. So it's a pretty simple package, it's pretty simple contents, nothing wrong with any of that, it's all you need, and it's basically what I'd expect for $110 US. What's more important is the quality of the earphones and the cable and whether or not you're going to enjoy using them and listening to them. So let's start talking about the cable. The cable itself is apparently a LITS construction. Now I can't confirm that, but if it is, it's fantastic to get that at this level of an earphone. What a LITS construction means is that each individual strand within the wire has been coated independently. And it means that in theory, the signal is going to travel along each strand without the interference of jumping between the strands of the wire. Now, when you get into cable technologies, it's an area of huge amounts of debate. It's an area that, in my experience, better in terms of cost and in terms of marketing spiel doesn't always mean better sound, it just means different. And so what I think is really important when thinking about the Moondrop Starfields is whether or not the cable does a good job in its pairing with the IEMs that it's provided with. And in my experience, it does a fine job. It's not the nicest feeling cable. It's a little bit thin. It's got this plasticky style sheathing that's a little bit slippery to the touch. It doesn't feel as nice as some of the cloth wrapped cables out there, but it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It's got a decent plug with a good strain relief built in there. It's a molded strain relief. It's got a nice simple little metal wire splitter with the Moondrop logo on there. The end points, as you can probably see here, once it splits out of the wire, it does tend to get a little bit tangle prone. I often find myself, when I take it out, I have to kind of look at the earphones and work out which way around do I need to get it to untangle it. So that's a minor drawback, but again, it's just minor. It's not something I think you should ever not buy an earphone for, is if it's got a slightly tangle prone cable. Yes, it's nice for manufacturers to fix that kind of thing, but it shouldn't be a deal breaker. The final thing about the cable is it doesn't have any wire built into the over earpieces here, so it's just the heat shrink itself giving you the shape, and that generally seems to be a preference for a lot of people because it means it contours to your ear and it's comfortable to wear for long periods of time without putting any pressure or needing to rebend it to get it just right all the time. Now that brings us to the earphones. The earphones are connected with a simple standard 2-pin. It's very, very slightly recessed. I really like this design. It's not a full recessed socket, so you're going to have some flexibility with the cables you can use, but it's also going to hide some of the plastic that's often protruding depending on the design of the plug itself on the end of the cable. So this is a really nice balance point. It also means you can buy aftermarket cables for Bluetooth usage, for just general upgrades, whether it be upgrades in the feel or the sound quality if you're going for that. It's just a nice flexible choice. The same as MMCX is a great choice as well. So it's just nice to see IEM manufacturers like Moondrop, and indeed the Shozzies that I just reviewed, sticking with the standard 2-pin plugs, or indeed the MMCX, and making it really easy for consumers to change cables if they want to, or if they need to replace them. Now in terms of the earphones, they're actually a metal housing. So it's a really nice, solid feeling housing. They feel sturdy, they feel solid. There's a clear seam where the two pieces have been joined together. That for me is a slight drawback at just how exposed that seam is, or how obvious I should say that seam is, but it shouldn't be an issue from a long-term usability point of view or a longevity point of view. It's just for me aesthetically, I don't like the look of the seam so much. But again, you're listening to these, you're not looking at them, they're going to be in your ears, and other people are just going to see the faceplate, and the faceplate is beautiful. It's finished in, I don't know how much you can see in this video, but you'll see in the glamour shot, the housings have this beautiful pearlescent blue-purple paint to them. Under good light, they change between this deep, deep purple and more of a sort of a mid-blue, like a royal blue, and there's silvery gold fleck through it throughout, and then the logos on the earpieces as well. So they're a beautiful looking and beautifully finished IEM. I have seen reports around the traps of the paint chipping on them, and that's always an issue with a metal body painted IEM like this. Even with the anodized IEMs, something like the Campfire Audio, those are prone to chipping as well. So you do need to be careful with painted or anodized finishes versus say an acrylic where the color is built into the entire mold. In these you do have to be a bit careful about chipping, but they look spectacular. If you take good care of them, they really look nice. The earpieces both have, and again you'll see this in the glamour video, they have different logos on each. One of them has the Starfield wording, and the other one has this little icon of like a starburst or something on the other earpiece. I personally prefer my earphones symmetrical. I'm just weird like that. Some people will like the fact that they're differentiated between the left and right. It's again a small deal, but something I want to mention for you. The final point that I'll make is that you've then got a standard size bore for the ear tips. So you can use all kinds of aftermarket ear tips, spin fits, spiral dots, and of course the provided silicone tips that come with the earphones, which are quite fine. They're not amazing, there's nothing wrong with them. There's just a set of different sized grey silicone single flange tips. So with all of the design conversation out of the way, let's talk about the sound. I'm really impressed with the sound of the Starfields. For $110 IEM, they really have a beautiful, clean, well-balanced, well-tuned sound signature. The sound I would describe as generally pretty neutral, with maybe a slight lift in the bass, but there's not very much at all. I did a bunch of listening to these today in isolation, so not comparing them with anything else, just to give them the chance to stand on their own and let me hear them for what they were doing, rather than in that A-B comparison where you kind of get swayed by what you've listened to before and after. And I have to say, I just found them enjoyable. I found them easy to listen to, very clear, very crisp, but also never harsh, never sibilant. Everything I listened to through them was enjoyable, fun, and engaging, which is really important. One of the really impressive things I noticed was the accuracy of the soundstage is really fantastic. It's not a huge soundstage like I spoke about with the Shozzy Form 1.4s, but what it is very accurate. So the soundstage tends to be quite wide and relatively flat. It hasn't got a lot of depth, but everything is really well placed in that soundstage. It certainly doesn't feel congested. It feels just very clear and clean, albeit in more of a two-dimensional space than a full three-dimensional circular space. As I was listening today, I never found myself wanting for anything more in terms of that soundstage or that presentation or even the signature. They were just doing everything really nicely throughout. I've run them from a variety of sources, and whether it was from my Pioneer XDP300R portable player, or from an LG V30 phone, or through the Chord Cutest and into the THX789 amplifier from Massdrop, all of them sounded great. So as you'd expect from a dynamic driver earphone, at this sort of price level that's not designed to be super analytical, it's going to be really comfortable with whatever you plug it into. It's not finicky or difficult like some of those really low impedance balanced armature models can be. Now I'm not going to go into a lot of comparisons here. I did do some comparisons over in the Shozzy Form 1.4 video, so jump over there if you want to hear a bit more about how the Starfields stack up directly to something like the Form 1.4. But what I want to stress for these is that they're a brilliant earphone for $110. You're going to be extremely happy with them. Some time ago I reviewed the SimGot range of earphones with the MT3 and the EM2, and I feel like I prefer the Starfields to either of those. In both cases, with the SimGots at that lower level, I found them a little bit bright in the case of the EM2 and a little bit heavy on the bass and a bit dry in the treble in the case of the MT3. What I found with the Starfields was they just strike a really great balance. Everything's well placed, it's well balanced between the trebles, the mids and the bass, and the soundstage is beautifully coherent to add to that. So I think at this level they're a great offering for someone that's just looking for an all-rounder. They don't stand out in any particular way, and that's actually their strength, because most people are going to pick these up, thoroughly enjoy them, and be able to listen to any genre with no real concerns about the signature getting in the way of enjoying the music the way it's meant to be. So all that said, if you're looking for a brilliant $110 in-ear monitor, definitely have a think about the Starfields. Click through the link below to go through to Shenzhen Audio to pick it up and say thank you to them for making this review possible. Don't forget to subscribe and comment if you want to win this pair of Starfields for yourself, and also don't forget that there's other giveaways coming up soon with the Topping E30 DAC that I'm going to review and then give away, as well as some other headphone reviews that I've got teed up as well. For now though, let me leave you to your music. Happy listening, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you here next time on Passion for Sound.